Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Luis. We're on video 10, and this is the heart of the entire system. We're going to be talking about the publishing state machine. So, three big things I want to cover here is the challenges of building a publishing stack with the requirements that I had and how those were resolved, why I didn't choose to use step functions and went with an event-driven design for especially for this. Well, the whole thing is event-driven, but especially for this. And lastly, we're going to go through all the different events that kind of kick this thing off. So with that, we'll just jump right on in. So the challenge, is I have a lot of different content that's going to be going through this publishing machine, right? So the core of it is content like this that's kind of general, generated by me, that has to be reviewed. But I also have other sources of content that I want to build, which is for me and my trading. I do a lot of research, do a lot of reading, and I'd like to at least automate some portion of that. So I have like a research stack, and eventually I'll have an economy stack where I'll have Lambdas go out, scour, pull economic information, scrub it, summarize it for me to review, and then repurpose to publish. Not really going to talk on the research and economy stack. Going to really focus on that publishing stack because the way I architected this is they all share the same framework. Ultimately, the publishing stack is the one that's going to do all the work to get the content out to be published, regardless of what it is. So that was the one thing was I needed to generalize the architecture enough so that any other type of content, not just content that is 100% produced by me, can be published using the same methods because the destinations would all be the same. So with that, the next big challenge that I had is I love AI. I think it's one of the greatest technological revolutions that we've had, and it's only getting started. However, where we are today, it generates an immense amount of garbage, which are officially called hallucinations. But for me, it's just, I don't completely trust any output that AI gives me. So I want to make sure that anything it gives me, I have the opportunity to go over, put my words into it, and make sure that it is correct and up to my quality standards. So because of that, there's a need for human review in anything that AI produces before it ever goes out and gets published. So those were the big challenges and how I kind of began to address them. Let's talk about step functions. You would imagine that something like this would work really well if we just chained lambdas together. Well, because of my need to have to review everything before things getting published or things moving on to another stage, just to verify that the quality is there, that for one pretty much negated a step function, because this is not a completely automated system, it's semi-automated. So that was the one big thing of why no step functions. The next piece is we have a lot of asynchronous work that has to happen for the content to be published. So like I said, I've got my cards, every idea I have, I kind of script out what it is that I want to share about my experience or how someone can do what I'm doing, record that, put that in. The first Lambda that we see here on the screen is the generate Lambda. That one runs right now. It's, at least for my MVP, I'm invoking it. What that'll eventually do though is event bridge on a schedule. Every morning we'll go through all the data that was ingested and run this function to generate a blog post, generate a LinkedIn social media post, and generate a YouTube description. Those three things. So those three things come out of the generate Lambda. That happens separate. That's not necessarily part of the publishing. After I review those outputs and approve them, then we can get into saying, okay, now the next function sends out the blog post to Ghost, and another one interfacing with Make sends things out to YouTube and Buffer. Now, the asynchronous workflows where that fits in is I want to embed that YouTube video in my Ghost blog post. So that means that I have to invoke Make to go publish YouTube, get all that information from YouTube, the URL, bring it back so that I can embed it into Ghost. And all that creates now not necessarily a linear flow, right? Because there's dependencies between the content before it gets published. So that was another reason for to not use step functions is I would need more step functions than I would care to manage, for something that should be very simple. The step functions would have complicated it. And if I did the step functions, I also would lose control of the orchestration of everything that's going on. So again, I use an orchestration stack with EventBridge to be able to have the control levers for the whole system. Going with a step function, not only would it complicate the design, but it would also make it harder for me to control or deviate with anything that, if there's a new source I want to publish to, or there's a slight change in the workflow, now I've got to step functions that I have to take into consideration as to how to handle that. While if I keep DynamoDB streams and EventBridge, I can add couple more criteria, maybe update a couple lines of code in the Lambda, and I don't have to worry about a cascading effect of step functions. So the events, we said, like I mentioned, it's all driven by state changes. Whenever that generate content is generated by the Lambda function, it updates DynamoDB, puts a status of that content as ready for review. I go into DynamoDB, query all those that are ready for review, and I can then just open up the folder. It's in S3, but I've got Mountain Duck on my computer. I can open up Mountain Duck, go to the right folder, open up the files. They're all markdown files. I can edit them. And once they meet my quality standard and I'm say, yes, this is how I sound as I talk, this is a good representation of what this content is supposed to be. Then at that point, I go back into DynamoDB, tell it that the content is approved. The Lambda for publishing then also will be running on a schedule. So right now it's not doing that. I have to invoke it. And that's more because it's MVP. The rules are already written for EventBridge to do that. And the way that looks, I'm going to switch over now to my CDK so you can see the EventBridge code. Okay, so here we are looking at EventBridge and the rules, and this is as simple as it is to trigger the publishing Lambda. Publishing Lambda, all it's got to do is, once that status is approved and there's a scheduled date that field is not empty, it triggers the Lambda function to do that, to begin to publish. So if I look at my Lambdas, go into publishing, look at the logic here, and I see this is a very long file. I can check all the different destinations of where the content is supposed to go. And this Lambda, the way it works is it goes item by item and then triggers, for example, for the YouTube, it will send a webhook to make.com, triggers make.com scenario. It publishes to YouTube. It'll even send a thumbnail over to the YouTube. And once it's done that, it will call back to a Lambda in my AWS. So this is the only time that I bypass EventBridge. Make will call back and invoke a Lambda in my AWS construct so that now it triggers this again. It populates the URL, the YouTube URL in DynamoDB, and then the publishing Lambda takes over again, putting all the pieces together that it should. Sending out now the posts out to LinkedIn, grabbing the posts out of LinkedIn, putting them back into DynamoDB. All of that complicated process, as complicated as it may sound, is all handled right here with just 200 lines of code or 300 lines of code, whatever the heck this is. But everything, grabbing, updating Lambdas and doing all this stuff is happening just off of that. So all event driven, all done by state changes. It's, as of right now, as I'm recording this, very much in the testing phase for all this. It has worked. So all I have to do now is just activate the EventBridge scheduler so that it's running on a daily process. That wraps it up for this video. Our next video, we're going to talk about the AWS infrastructure as code. So you already see some of that here, but I'll actually start walking us through how I've organized CDK, why I chosen CDK. So I will see you at the next video.